The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, Lauren Malhoit here for, I think, the 5th day of Commitmas. Um, hey Anthony, can you see my screen all right?
Yep.
All right, cool. So yeah, 5th day of Commitmas. We're here with some more Git basics: how to clone, how to add, how to commit and push with Anthony Elizondo at Complex on Twitter. And of course, this is vBrownbag. So get in on the conversation. Follow us at Commitmas or hashtag Commitmas. And of course, at vBrownbag or hashtag vBrownbag. There are recorded episodes. Check them out on vbrownbag.com and even on our GitHub site, which is github.com/commitmas/30 days of Commitmas. You'll probably be able to Google that and find it. But with that, I'm going to change our presenter to Anthony here, who has the good stuff for tonight. So Anthony, take it away.
Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone. This is Anthony Elizondo at Complex on Twitter. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I don't have any slides, but I work for Bloomberg in New York City. Previously, I've worked for the Associated Press, the AP, and Vonage, the phone company. And just happy to share not only what I know, but share the experience of learning new things. A lot of people from vBrownbag have been so nice to me in the past, and it's just fun to talk with them and learn new things. So today we're going to talk about the bare minimum, the baby steps of Git. So hopefully you've listened to Matt or Tim or some of the other presenters. Hopefully you already have a GitHub account. If you don't, you can just follow along, with the demonstrations. So that'll be okay. So the first thing we're going to do is just pull up a diagram that I think will help us kind of get a little map or a lay of the land of what kind of things are happening in Git when you run these basic commands. There's here's a simple diagram of the places where information is stored inside Git. So this blue one here is the workspace. This is usually where you start. There's staging, and then there's a local repository and the remote repository. People coming from other SCMs sometimes are confused by the local and the remote, and they're also confused by staging because a lot of SCMs don't have this intermediary step. You just kind of have your laptop, which might be the workspace, and then some remote repo. So Git introduces a lot of new places where things can end up.
Hey Anthony, you said SCMs, is that right? What does that mean?
Yeah, SCMs are source control management tools. So if you've heard of SVN or RCS or CVS, those are ways to track changes to code or track changes to files, really. For us nerds, we're usually dealing with code, but it can be any kind of text. It can be a markdown text like Matt is fond of, or it can be anything. So in this diagram, we're going to cover only some of these arrows. Some of the more complicated arrows will be in future nights of Commitmas. You can work ahead if you're interested in them, but really we're just going to focus on four of these arrows and how they can help us move around. So the first is git add. So this is you would use git add when you have a file that you want to source control, and when you git add, it places it into staging. This is basically telling Git this is a file that I want to keep track of. The second arrow is Git Commit. Git Commit takes those changes or a bunch of changes and saves them to your local repository. After you've done this, Git Git has enough to keep track of all your stuff. If you never went any farther, if you never even talked to a remote repository, this would be fine. This local repository on your laptop would be enough to save all your changes, and you never have to talk to anyone else if you don't want to. But if you do want to publish your changes so that others can reach it, you'd probably want to go to the third arrow, and that's this one here called Git Push. Right? Git Push takes your Git commits and pushes them to a remote repository. In our case, it's GitHub, but it could be any other Git service, right, like Bitbucket or anything else. After a Git push, then it shows up in GitHub, and people can browse it on the web and do more things to it, right, more advanced things.
Hey, Anthony, is there a reason why you would just keep it in your local repository? Like, is there something cool about Git that you would, not publish it out? You wouldn't push it out?
Yeah, sure. Like, let's say you are writing a novel or something. A novel is text. It's not code, but you would want to keep track of changes of it. So you might sit down each day and write some code and write some paragraphs of your story and commit it and save it on your local laptop, but you're not at all ready to show anyone else, what you've written, or maybe it's a personal diary or something like that. And then, basically each day you add more files and commit them, and that's it. You would use Git log, like Matt showed, or Git status to keep track of your changes, and then you could even make like a little diagram or a log of, you could say, oh, last week I wrote 6,000 words, or I haven't committed for 5 days, so I should probably refocus my efforts on writing, or really sit down and focus. So yeah, without this push and fetch states, that's fine. Just on your local machine. The last arrow we're going to talk about is Git Clone. This is sometimes called Git Pull. In GitHub speak, you hear people say pull requests. People in future nights will talk about what a pull request is and how and why you use it. In our case, we'll just talk about a simple Git clone. A Git clone is, I want to copy something from a remote repository to to my workspace, this blue area. You often see Git clone instructions when you're trying out some new piece of software, or someone might say, oh, just clone my repo. I have it on GitHub, so you would plug in some URL here, a GitHub URL, and Git clone that URL, and it would copy everything from remote into your workspace. And then you can start working on it. You can start modifying it, maybe make your own commits, and then push them back up to the remote repository. That's kind of what we're going to do now in a short little demo.
We have a quick question. So basically, if we're mapping the workspace, all of those top tiers there, so the workspace is mapped, workspace, staging, and local repository are all mapped to your laptop, right? And the remote repository will be the tree at my GitHub account. Right.
It usually is GitHub. It could be some other remote repository. It could be like your friend's machine. But in most cases, it's GitHub, yeah. It can be anything, though.
Awesome. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. We'll just open a new tab. We'll save this. But so now that we've covered the places, and we have covered each of these commands, right? Add is place things in staging, commit, push, and then clone. So now we're going to do just a quick demo. This is very basic. If someone ever asks you to clone the repo, then at least you'll be able to do it after watching this. So cloning, we're going to clone this Commitmas repo, right? And when you look at GitHub, the repo is represented here. This is I guess this is a group or an organization, and in this organization there's 3 repos here, and this is the repo that we're going to clone. You can see here there's a little handy shortcut that if you clone it, you can clone it just with a simple HTTP request or SSH, and you can just click in here and copy the URL. So if you're running on OS X, you would have Git installed. If you followed the demonstration from 2 nights ago, you have it installed on Windows. If you have a Linux machine, you probably have it installed already too. I'm here in my documents. I made a folder called Commitmas, and now we're going to clone that repo to my local machine, represented right by that bottom arrow. So let's paste this URL in here. Oops. And it did it. It was very fast. This repo is relatively small. But if we look now, you can see there's a new folder here. If we look in here, there's a license, a README, a challenges, and an AutoCAT, which is the same things that you see here in this web interface. We're going to add a new file, right? Looking at our diagram, we're going to add something to this repo. Let's say I'm going to go into challenges, and then the 4th challenge. And there's only one file here, the file I've created, README. But if we did, if we touched a new file, right? Demo.txt, and put something in here. Now, this git add is important, right? Without it, Git doesn't know that you want to track this file, so we have to explicitly say it. You also notice there's a shortcut here. There's a git commit -a. It's just wrapping the commit and the add into one command. That's just a convenience thing. We're going to do it separate so we understand it, exactly each step. If we look at git status, it tells us that this new file is here. If we had run git status before adding, it would just say there was no change. Actually, it would say that it sees this file, but it's not tracking it. It shows up in red, if I recall. Now we're ready to commit this change. Remember, committing, when people say commit, it's only committing to your local repository. It doesn't go out to GitHub yet. It's bringing up an editor so we can add a commit message. You can also do it at the command line. So we'll add, just put a message here telling other people, or telling ourselves, right, what we're doing. And it has added it. If we look at git status now.
So Anthony, in there, you said git commit and it was empty because you hadn't actually put in file, right? And then you did git commit -m. What does the -m mean?
Well, actually, git commit it would have committed it. I Control-C out of that. What it did is it opened the editor and it asked me to type in something. But instead of using the editor, you can just add it right from the command line with -m. So it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. If you want to see the without -m, we can do it that way too. So what would we do? We would edit this demo file. We're going to make another change, right? Second change. Now let's say, I added that line, that's new content. If I do git status, it knows that I've modified this file, and it shows it in dark red. It's unhappy, right? It says, I see this file has changed, but you have not yet committed it. So we can commit it now. This time with not with the command line switch. Git commit. Oops. It says changes not staged for commit. And we will add our message in here. All these lines here are just comments. Adding second line. And that's it. So right now we have committed it. We are kind of at this state in our local repository. If we went to GitHub and refresh, there's no changes here. Nothing. No one else can see. It hasn't left our local machine. But now we do. Let's say we do want to, right? We want to perform this green arrow command. We're going to push. And now it's asking me to log into GitHub. Of course, whatever repo you're pushing to, you need to have rights to it. In most cases, and this will be covered in future nights, you hear people say a pull request. Usually, a pull request means that you've cloned the repo to your own branch, and when you make the changes there, and you push them, you're pushing them into your branch, and then someone else, maybe like a team lead or whoever owns the repo, has to approve them, right, or merge them, has to merge them in and see if they're okay. So someone who's pushing a change, someone who is submitting a pull request might say, can you take a look, or how does this look to you, and explaining what they did. And then the person who is approving it would say, LGTM, it looks good to me, or it doesn't look good, I think you should add this, and then they can have a conversation, make more changes, and then finally merge. Again, people will talk about that in the future nights, so I don't know if we have to get too deep into it. So after logging in, it pushed my objects here, and you can see this syntax here is showing the change of the SHA-1 hash of each commit. So it went from 9C to 407. If we look here in the web interface, this is my last commit from about an hour ago. If I Control-R and refresh the page, you can see this is my new change, right? This is the last commit. It matches 407 from the command line. And if we look in challenges and directory 4, which is mine, haha, we have our demo.txt file. And now anyone in GitHub can see this. So really, we've completed the cycle, right? We cloned a repo. We did start at the bottom. We cloned the repo. We added a new file, committed it, and then pushed it. And now it's live. Right? People can see this change, and they can pull it to their machine. They can make changes to it. One of the greatest powers of Git is it's really distributed. Previous SCMs used to have one central source of control, like one CVS repo or SVN repo, and everyone had to check stuff out to a local machine and then push it back in, and the merging always happened at this central place with centralized control. And if that person wasn't there, they had to wait, or there was a lot of waiting, and there was a lot of kind of choke points to development, and a lot of those choke points are gone, right? I can do. It's a total trade-off, but in exchange for having all these extra steps and all these extra kind of places to keep track of. Now I can do lots of development just in the blue and orange and green areas, and no problem, right? I can do this loop many times a day, or I can do this loop for every day for a month without telling anyone, and then after a month I can push it, and then people can see all the changes that I've made. In terms of practice, what you should do is try and practice these 4 steps, right? Adding, committing, pushing, and cloning. And you can use my repo. You can create your own repo, right? When each person in GitHub has their own organization, basically, and you can make however many repos you want. You can make it private. I think there's some limit before you have to start paying, but you could just make it public because you won't put any sensitive information in there, and try and edit files and push them and try and destroy things, right? Me and Lauren were speaking before we started that you must fail to learn anything new. So anyone who tells you I've never messed up a Git command, then they probably haven't learned very much. They haven't figured out what works and what doesn't, and they haven't figured out how to kind of get out of a bad situation. Like Matt said, you probably have to spend a lot of time breaking things and then wiping everything out and kind of starting over. Everyone who's used Git has probably done that. I guarantee you they've done it once. They've gotten into some situation where they've lost track of their files. They lost track of what files they've saved or not saved, and they just have to clone from the remote one more time and kind of start over. And everyone has done that, I'm quite sure. I think that covers most of it. If anyone has any questions, you can pipe up in the chat, webinar chat, or Twitter. Does anyone have any questions, Lauren? No. Let me take a look on Twitter. Yeah, I don't see any questions. Oh, I forgot to set up my fireplace video. Oh, but that's okay. Let's see. So it doesn't look like anyone has any questions. I don't see any.
Sorry, I've been talking, but I've been talking on mute. So basically, I'm a noob. So yeah, no, that was an awesome presentation. Let's see, what do we have here on Twitter? Lead us on useful Git commands on the 4th episode. Okay, no, it looks like we are just getting praises for our Commitmas episodes and yours especially. And that was an awesome episode, Anthony. I hope that we can, influence more people to get on Git. Hopefully everyone is forking our stuff. What is your GitHub name, Anthony? Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, sure. I just showed it. It's complex split. So I was not able to get complex, but you can message me or basically mention me on GitHub, and I'll show up there if you need help. If you're working on your own private repo, or you're working on a public repo of yours and you're stuck, you can mention me and I'll stop by. I love learning new things. I am far from a Git expert. In fact, I'm looking forward to the future episodes of Commitmas probably as much as anyone else, because there are tons of commands beyond these basics. Things like cherry picking, meaning pulling from some other remote repository and like a second remote repo and putting into folding that into your changes. Um, there's just tons of stuff you can do with Git, and it's very bewildering, right? There's actually so much you can do, and it's so complicated. Um, that's why there's a funny there's a funny web page that it fabricates Git man pages. Uh, just it creates silly random Git help pages, but they're almost somewhat believable because there's such a depth to how many things you can do with Git that it's really a super powerful tool. It's great to learn.
It's kind of like playing the bass. Like anyone can do it. You can push things, you can commit things, but to really master in it, you have to put in some practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You do have to practice. You have to exercise that muscle. Or here it is, Git man page generator. So you know I think when they first put this out, they had to add this. This is not real Git documentation, but people would reload this and say, "Oh, I just learned about Git mobilize stash or Git jeb commit." These are just nothing. Yeah, but it's very deep. You got to start somewhere, and you have to mess up a couple times because that's the only way to learn. So.
Yeah, but everyone that's listening or will be listening, it's actually pretty easy to do the first part that Anthony's talking about. But there's a lot of features, a lot of things you can get into that make it a little more complicated, feature rich. I think is what we call that, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much, Anthony. That was an awesome presentation. Awesome, just demos. That's what we like on vBrownbag, right?
Right.
All right. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. I don't think there are any more questions. So everyone enjoy their Friday night, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Remember, Commitmas is every day of December, and we'll be getting in deeper into GitHub and other developer type things. So thanks again, Anthony, and thanks to everyone who's listening.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Good night.
Night.